Hi everyone, I'm Seetal Savla, aka Savla Fair, and I'm a patient fertility advocate. This video is a follow-up to Series 1 of the Fertility Diaries series I did with Ferring back in April 2021, documenting my second donor egg IVF cycle. If you're unfamiliar with our story, here's a quick recap. My husband Neil and I started our fertility journey on Christmas Day 2015 when I discovered I'd become pregnant naturally. Sadly, I miscarried a few weeks later, and then following a low ovarian reserve diagnosis and 4 unsuccessful cycles, IVF cycles using my own eggs, we decided to pursue donor conception. Our first cycle was cancelled, and then we got lucky on our second when I became pregnant. Unfortunately, I miscarried again, had a miscarriage at about the 2-month mark. And so the rest of the series focuses on the aftermath of the miscarriage, coping with grief, and moving forward. So the next chapter in our story started in late 2021 when I suspected that I'd conceived again naturally. And that came at a time when Neil and I were seriously contemplating a future without children. I didn't want to do the test. I was absolutely petrified of the result. If it was a negative, I'd feel like an even bigger failure than I did already. And if it was a positive, I was scared of everything that would entail. Being pregnant, having a potential loss, and then trying to pick up the pieces again at a point when we were starting to feel a bit more stable, a bit more like ourselves. So when I finally plucked up the courage to do the test about 2 weeks later and saw that I was pregnant, I just felt numb. I wasn't excited, which is something that you'd expect from someone who'd been trying to conceive for about 5-6 years. There was just no enthusiasm whatsoever. Both of us just thought, let's see how far this goes. Here we go again. Pregnancy after loss for me was difficult. It was dominated by the fear of another loss and constant anxiety. The anxiety would peak just before scans, and I would fear the worst. And I would hold my breath and then feel temporarily relieved when I was told that everything was on track. Then I would leave the clinic and the anxiety would start building again until I had the next scan. Thankfully, I had a great gynecologist, the same one who managed my miscarriage, and she encouraged me to come in every time I felt unsure about something. And so at the beginning that was every 10 days, which was very reassuring. I struggled to connect with the pregnancy for a long time, until my second semester, I think. I just didn't believe it was real, and I was trying to protect myself from another loss, really, in case that happened. But as I'm very well placed to know, if that had happened, no amount of self-protection can lessen the pain. I didn't want to share the news with anyone, especially not family, because managing the expectations and all the pressure that came with that, the high hopes, felt overwhelming at that time. I sought therapy, which was very helpful for me, as well as confiding in friends who had experienced or were experiencing pregnancy after loss at the same time as me. And that helped me to slowly embrace my pregnancy. I eventually came to the realization that if this was the only time that I was to be pregnant, I wanted to enjoy it as much as I can. Of course, the anxiety and the fear of loss was always there in the background, but it didn't overpower me as it did right at the beginning. Our daughter Meghna was born in Berlin, and the past 6 months have just been an absolute whirlwind. I don't even know where to begin trying to describe everything that we've felt and we've gone through since then. But I'll never forget the moment we heard Meghna's first cry. Neil and I turned, looked at each other and just burst into tears, because we couldn't believe that we were in that moment, that we were parents at long last after 5-6 years of trying to conceive. She was real and she was ours. And it felt so surreal, which is a word that I keep coming back to even now. For me, trying to get pregnant and stay pregnant felt like such an uphill battle that I didn't allow myself to think beyond that point. So actually becoming a parent will feel surreal for me for a long time, I think. It was difficult at the beginning. I had a tough stay in hospital, followed by a really hard time trying to establish breastfeeding, coupled with the lack of support on a daily basis as well. It's just Neil and I in Berlin, so it has been hard. But amongst all the madness, there have been so many moments of magic. so many special times that we have cherished and will continue to cherish, because this is what we have been working towards for such a long time. And it feels like a miracle. Motherhood to me is a series of extremes. It's intense love and joy, it's exhaustion, it's monotony, it's loneliness, it's the thrill of discovery every time Meghna does something new and she develops. It's just wonderful to observe. It's such a privilege.